Hello and welcome to another video. This is public test number 4, and this is the last one before any changes go live on December 1st. So let us read through the patch notes here and do some spreadsheet warrior and show some examples in game and give you my first impressions of it. So to start off, we're going down here. They have some reflections that they said. They believe that the majority of the weapon and equipment changes in PTS 3 were working well, and that people generally like them. And I'd have to agree with them, so they're going well there. What didn't work is the optimal laser range lock-on thing, and so they have canned that topic, and it just won't be in there. They're going to be further investigating some mechanic that they could add into the game to incentivize people to use the information warfare. But for now, I'm very happy that that lock-on mechanic is not going to be in, and I will be putting out an idea in a future what I would change of what I would do to incentivize the information warfare. And what still needs investigation is information warfare itself. They're just finding that it needs more time to be fleshed out completely. There's just too many individual components that need to be tuned and adjusted, and they're not going to push it out there before it's settled down, sort of thing. So for now, the things like the different sensor ranges and the profiles based on mech size are not going to be in PTS 4 and in the changes that happen on December 1st. But we can go through and see what the weapon changes are that are on PTS 4. And I'm going to zoom in here and make this a little bit easier for people to read if you're, say, watching this on a mobile device. There have been slight buff to IS LBX autocannon ammo. That's just normalizing. It's matching the normal autocannon 10. Gauss rifles have had their cooldowns increased from 4 seconds to 5.5 seconds, and that's a good thing, at least in my opinion. Makes the Gauss rifle more of a long-range, big sniper rifle, a little bit longer between shots. And this is a big thing here. This makes me happy. IS and Clan autocannon 2s and Ultra autocannon 2s have had their base heat reduced to 0.8, down from 1. And they now do more critical damage. So whenever you hit an opponent and you do get a critical hit, you do more damage. It's not increasing the rate of critical hits. That's staying the same. But when you do get a crit, you're doing much more damage. So I think this is a great buff for the autocannon 2. They actually could have taken the heat a little further in terms of going down. I would have liked to see a 0.6. That would have been great. Also with this, I really think the autocannon 5 family should go up from 1. It should go up from 1 to, say, 1.5 or 1.6, 1 point something. It would help normalize it out. But this is a good move for the autocannon 2. It gives it kind of like that machine gun feel roll where it's like, hey, your internals are open. I'm going to shoot you there and get more critical damage. So hopefully autocannon 2s will become more useful. Now for all of missiles, we've had the spread being reduced. So the amount of area that the missiles cover, how far they separate out during flight, has been reduced for all missiles, and the cooldown for all LRMs has been slightly increased. So basically LRMs shooting less often, but when they do hit, they're much more concentrated. And I'm ambivalent to these changes. I don't really care. LRMs, I don't really use them, and I don't really get hit by them very often. So sure, there's slight adjustments. We'll have to see how they play out. But going down here is some great ones for the SRMs. So IS and Clan streaks have had their base speed increased by 50 points. So IS streaks go from 200 to 250, and clan streaks go from 180 to 230. This is fine. Streaks are a fairly slow projectile in the game, and this might help you when you're trying to shoot your streaks out the very max of their range. Help them get on target before that enemy light can step behind cover. But also, regular SRMs have had their base speed increased by 100 meters per second from 300 to 400. And this is great. It makes it so that your SRMs are getting to target faster, they're easier to aim at the long distances. SRMs have also had their spread reduced and significantly reduced. So SRM 6 has gone from 5.7 meters to 4.5 meters. SRM 2s are so tight, 4.8 to 2.5. They're practically not spreading out at all, and so that is great. Also, slight increase of the heat scale max firing threshold, so the amount you can fire before incurring any heat scale, or ghost heat as the community lovingly calls it, has just been increased across the board for all SRMs. Moving on to lasers, we have the slight reduction in the max range, so not optimal, but max range, of the small and medium size lasers for the clans. This is for both the ER and the pulse variety. And to do a little bit of Spreadsheet Warrior, we're going to pop into here and talk about this. So here are the public test values for these. So no changes to the inner sphere. We can see, oh, go away Adobe, I don't need your updates. Inner sphere, we see that the max range is 100%. So the optimal range is, for example, with the small laser here, is 135 meters. Max range is double that, an increase of 100%. And that's what this statistic here is. Now, with these new values in the public test, the ER small laser has an 80% increase to its max range. Instead of being 400, it's now 360. And the ER medium laser has a 70% increase. Instead of being 810, it's now 688. And so it's the same down here for the small pulse and the medium pulse. The smalls are 80%, mediums are 70%, but the ER large laser and the large pulse laser have not been touched, and they are still at 100%. So just to do a little bit of a comparison with a graph, these are the laser ranges on live, and the ER lasers are the blue and the pulse lasers are the orange. And of course the small, medium, and large varieties. Then if we flip over here to what the public test values are, we can see the small and medium just being brought back. Their optimal is still in the same location, but just where that fall off of the damage is brought back a little bit. Now, I'm fine with these changes. They're not really going to affect me. If you're shooting out, say, my Arctic Cheetah, I do the 6 ER small laser build. If I'm shooting out at 400, I'm not expecting pretty much any damage anyway. So I'm typically always shooting within 300 meters. So this max range, it probably won't affect me very much. Maybe there's a couple times when I won't be able to tickle an opponent that's 700 meters out with my ER mediums, but that's fine. I'm actually surprised they didn't go a little bit more aggressive with this. I thought that they were going to maybe have 70 across the board for all of the clan tech, and I would have been okay with that. I would have, for example, liked to have seen it be clan tech and ER laser rule, so that in the future, if they ever do introduce inner sphere ER lasers, they can follow this rule as well and just set all of the max range to be 70%, including the ER large and large pulse. But as of now, this is the ranges that we do have. All right, back to the notes here. Also, heat scale has been added to the IS medium pulse lasers, and they're just the same values as they were for the IS medium laser. You can fire 6 at once with no penalty, and if you fire the 7th, you'll get a little bit of penalty. The multiplier is only set to 1, which is fairly small. That's fine. Your Thunderbolts and stuff like that will just have to fire 2 weapon groups. That should be fine. ECM protective range has been reduced from 180 to 90 meters. And honestly, I couldn't tell the difference. Like, when I run ECM, I'm typically not going like, okay, I need to like stay near my team and stuff like that, because I'm running either my Arctic Cheetah or my Shadowcat. And I am off doing my own thing because I'm using my mobility. So ECM protective range down, that's fine. That should be good. But then we have a whole bunch of heatsink changes. We have the inner sphere single heatsinks being buffed in cooling rate and capacity, if I'm correct. Yes, both of them have been buffed. So across the board, IS single heatsinks have been increased. Their cooling rate went from 0.1 to 0.12, and their capacity goes from 1 to 1.2. So that's great. Inner sphere single heatsinks get buffed. That won't affect me at all because I'll stick with my clan mechs with double heatsinks. So sure, give them toys to play with, give them candy. I honestly think that single heatsinks should just be obsolete, and double heatsinks should be the thing to get. And you could just make it an extremely simple step to get out of single heatsinks and get into double heatsinks, particularly lowering the cost of the upgrade. But whatever, they're making them more viable. It's all good. IS double heatsinks have also got a small capacity increase from 1.4 to 1.5. And they didn't get a dissipation, so they're still at 0.14 dissipation. IS mechs will just be able to fire a bit more before they have to retreat and cool off. That's fine. Clan double heatsink cooling rates have been increased slightly from 0.14 to 0.15. I honestly don't understand this one exactly. I think the clan double heatsink could have been left at 0.14 and it would have been okay. But hey, I'll take a little more heat dissipation. I like to run cool builds. It'll mean that with a mech with enough heatsinks, I'm getting a free heatsink or two worth of cooling per second. So hey, maybe I can cut that heatsink for another ton of ammo. Who knows? And the capacity for those clan double heatsinks have been shrunk significantly from 1.4 to 1.1. And I think this is a good idea. Like I said in the last video I did, if it went below 1.0, I would start to get a little concerned. But really, we have enough heat capacity even without a lot of this capacity being given by the heatsinks that we're adding to fire all of our weapons at once. So that's good. Next up is mech efficiencies. And oh my, these have been changed dramatically. Normally, we'll just pop into the game here, we go into the skills, and we look at, say, oh, let's look at the Hugin that I have out right now. So Raven and into the Hugin. You would have these mech efficiencies. And in the public test right now, these numbers here are part of the UI. They just haven't been changed. The background numbers have been changed. So they are the values we're seeing here. But when you got your basics all done, and then you got your double from your elite, this efficiency multiplier, some of these things were ridiculous. Like deceleration 25%. It doubled as 50% deceleration for having that mech elited. And this further increased the gap between a player who is brand new and a player who had been playing for a while. I mean, it's great to give that player who's been playing for a while some something that he's played for a while, he's achieved something on that mech, he can unlock something and make that mech better permanently. But it should be smaller percentages than 50%. So that's what they've done, is they've rebalanced these mech efficiencies. They've dropped them down significantly. So that 25% from hard break is now 7.5%. That's still going to be 15% when you elite it, because this is the basic that they're showing here. But going from 50 to 15 is a great change. And things like speed tweak have been gone down from 10 to 7.5. That's a nice change. Just this entire thing with mech efficiencies makes it so that new players are more on a level playing ground, and it feels cool. And I'll just do a little demonstration here. You have your light mechs, like say I'm going to pop into my Arctic Cheetah and I'll just testing grounds real quickly here. They still have their mobility. They still have the ability to turn and jump and move around mechs really quickly. It's like, I'm definitely not feeling like my mech is, handicapped in any way. I can still accelerate well. I can still move around. I can still look behind me real quickly, then move back, look forward, spin around, accelerate back up to full speed. I'm still a mobile mech. But let us pop into the Direwolf, and we'll show how by taking away a lot of these mech efficiencies, the Direwolf and larger mechs like that feel really cool. Like they feel like a great big mech monster death machine, and I think that adds a lot of really good sort of almost flavor to the game in terms of, like, I'm going to look to the right. Oh my god, this mech's so slow now. You look around, it takes a good second or two for your mech to catch up to your cursor, and you look at this acceleration. So slow. And both of these mechs are mastered out, so you can get a feeling of what this mech is, even after all of the bonuses that are currently available. So I feel like this is a good thing. It makes these larger mechs feel like great big large machines of war, and it's a slight buff for the little mechs because their numbers were already so high. These percentages just made them stupid, but the numbers were high enough that they will get by, where these larger mechs were compensating for their lack of mobility with these efficiencies, and that was making it harder for, say, if I had an enemy mech that had like spun in behind me and I was going from full speed and then I get a mech tickling my butt here and I have to turn around. So much time to turn around. It gives that light mech a buff in its ability to, react. It gives more reaction time, more ability for those lighter mechs to use their maneuverability to fight these larger mechs. And also, it gives the quirks some meaning to them. When you have an acceleration quirk or a deceleration quirk, before you would already have mass quantity of these acceleration, deceleration because of these efficiencies. But now when they put an acceleration or deceleration or any maneuverability quirk on a mech, and I'm just trying to find a good example. So the Jenner here, 30% acceleration, deceleration. Previously, that was pretty much like, yeah, you don't need extra because you already have so much because you're already given like 40 to 50% from your efficiencies. But now that the bar has been lowered, a few mechs can be bumped back up to sort of where they were. So mechs like the Jenner are kind of not going to change. They're going to retain the mobility they feel right now in the live client, while everything else is going to get a little bit more sluggish. And that gives them the benefit of having mobility. So overall, this is a great change. Moving on, clan mech XL engines. When a clan mech loses a side torso, and it loses those 2 slots of its engine power is reduced by 20% for the rest of the match. This reduction applies to all factors affected by the engine, such as turn rate, torso twist, and top speed. I think this is good. You lose a side torso with a clan mech. You get the benefit of having an XL and not dying when you lose a side torso. But then you're 20% slower in all respects. Yeah, that's great. I like this change. I'm not sure if it also reduces the heat. I know that is, at least I think it's currently in the client right now on live. But if they just add in this reduction in maneuverability, that's great. So I'm all for that change. Now, there's a huge change of quirks for all mechs. A whole bunch of quirks, as we can see in this PDF document that I can open up here. It's just like quirk upon quirk upon quirk, just far too many to go over in this video. 50 pages of it. So, I'm not going to go over all of these things. You can go through them yourself if you wish. But overall, I think they're all right. There are a few that are sort of like, aw, they wrecked my favorite thing. Well, not really wrecked, but sort of like, oh, I liked it that way. Like the Raven Hugin, it's losing some of its missile cooldowns. I think it had like a 50% on live for its SRM4s. It's like a 25% SRM4, 25% missile cooldown, but now it's only got 5% SRM4 cooldown. So it's 30%, not 50, but still good. But what they have done for a lot of mechs is put on massive durability quirks. So if you look at this Hugin, holy crap, it's got all of this internal structure added onto it. So a lot of the weaker mechs, there's going to be a whole bunch of examples out there. You can just go and look through, but things like the Hugin, things like the Blackjack. Blackjack's got a whole bunch of structure, an additional 28 in the center torso, 22 in each side. Like, it's almost, I believe, doubling, if not more, the health, the internal health of very select mechs that they've decided to do this massive durability thing to. And for the majority of them, they're most likely fine. We'll have to play on live client and have 12v12s and see how these mechs perform before I can really make a decision on whether or not some of these quirks are reasonable. Right now, there's nobody on the public test looking for a match, so I can't get on there and test it for a lot of these, and also they've said it to only be 2v2s or 4v4s in the public test server, so that you can't really get good 12v12 science out of this. But overall, we'll have to see how every mech pans out in terms of quirks. There are a couple very fun exceptions. This Quick Draw 4G, which is just derpingly fun because of an input error. And this guy has 1,000% missile cooldown. I am 100% certain, if you follow the game, that you've seen videos of people derping around with this thing. But let's just do one more for science. And overheat. Because this mech is ridiculous with that many missile cooldown quirks. But anyway. Die, Commando. And I died myself. Quit out of there. And I think that comes to the end of these patch notes for the public test. So, overall, the favorite things I have coming from this test, I would have to say, let's see. Favorite thing definitely has to be the fact that this optimal laser range lock-on thing is not going to be in the game. That was just, I think, a poor choice. A lot of the weapon changes, like I'm sort of ambivalent to, I don't really care. The SRM changes are quite nice. They're going to be making SRMs a little more viable. You'll be able to hit your opponents a little further out, hit them a little bit more accurately, and concentrate your damage with them. Hopefully improve brawling a little bit. The laser changes are, they're fine. It always sucks when you lose a little bit of performance of your weapon, but the clan lasers are pretty strong right now. And heatsink changes are fine. Mech efficiencies are amazing, and I enjoy those. Clan XL engines, that's fine. That's a reasonable price to pay for the durability that they get. And the quirks will have to wait and see until we can get more time and experience playing the game with them in it. Overall, I think we have arrived at a good combination of changes with all of the 4 public tests we've gone through, and those are my first impressions. Thank you for watching, and good hunting.